Right?
Moving on to the next thing Warren hates.
So the next, I actually love this because listeners, if you at this point, if you guys don't know Warren by trade is an architect. Warren, in my opinion, is someone who is very rigid with his way of thinking, which gets him to be someone who can be an architect. It's not a very.
I am not rigid in my way of thinking.
So he says.
No, I'm not.
No,
But
okay.
Warren is thoughtful.
Maybe rigid wasn't the right word.
No, he is rigid.
It is
too.
absolutely not the right word.
No.
Go ahead, Reg.
So this is Tony Sherry.
Warren Wade Anderson,
Mark Barozzi.
Reggie Valentin.
welcome to the 4th episode of Antilles, a podcast forum where we discuss the contributions of Caribbean immigrants and their descendants to the arts and culture of the United States. At this point, you would normally hear my co-host Tony Sherry say,
The voice you just heard belongs to the activist, humanitarian, actor, and singer Harry Belafonte.
but you didn't hear Mr. Belafonte's voice in the cold opening. Instead, you heard discord threatening the cohesion of this co-hosting quartet. Whether this happens or not, the upcoming episode will hopefully provide you with a new appreciation for Harry Belafonte's legacy. Now that I've laid out the salient points of this installment, let's get back to Tony's introduction.
Born to immigrant parents in Harlem on March 1st, 1927, Harry Belafonte spent much of his youth in his mother's home country of Jamaica. Though difficult, life in Jamaica was full of rich cultural experiences that influenced Belafonte's art. At the beginning of World War II, Belafonte returned to Harlem with his mother and brother. He had trouble integrating into the new environment and later dropped out of high school to join the U.S. Navy. After Belafonte was honorably discharged, he went back to New York, where he worked odd jobs until 2 free tickets to the American Negro Theater changed his life. Belafonte auditioned for the A&T and earned his first leading role in Juno and the Paycock. In 1953, he made his film debut opposite Dorothy Dandridge in Bright Road. He won a Tony in 1954 for his performance in Almanac. At the same time, Belafonte developed his singing talents, having parlayed a series of nightclub performances into a record contract. His third album, Calypso, topped the charts for 31 consecutive weeks and was the first record to sell more than 1 million copies. Belafonte also secured a television outlet, an hour-long special, Tonight with Belafonte, which won him an Emmy. In the early 1950s, Belafonte developed a strong relationship with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Belafonte worked tirelessly to mobilize artists in support of the civil rights movement.
Today we'll be looking at Belafonte through the lens of his leading roles in The Sit-In, Harry Belafonte hosts The Tonight Show, and Carmen Jones. Quickly followed by an antithetical film to balance out the discussion. Now, let's hear the voice of our revered subject, followed by the discussion you heard in the cold opening.
Because I always have to point out to people that I'm not an artist who became an activist. I was an activist who became an artist. And in that activism, my path led from Eleanor Roosevelt and Paul Robeson and other icons of my youth who mentored me and befriended me. But I had also been in the Second World War and had taken great exception to the way in which black servicemen were being treated upon returning. And I too had an edge of anger and frustration with the way in which the system was treating its citizens. The system was treating its citizens of color.
Did you guys get to see The Sit-In?
Yes.
What do you guys think about that?
Let me ask you before anyone answers, like, why did you choose this film?
So I'm happy you asked that. So
That film and then Carmen Jones.
So I kind of did it backwards, right? So I seen Carmen Jones. I think me and Reginald saw it years ago. I was always aware of it, and then when I got a little older, I wanted to see it. So I haven't seen it. It was watching it the other day was like watching it for the first time. I haven't seen it in such a long time, but I kind of did it backwards. So I knew we were going to talk about Harry. I said, you know what, Carmen Jones was a big film with the all black cast. I'm like, that's something to talk about. And then the sit-in kind of stumbled upon me. I was actually. I think going home and a YouTube an advertisement came up and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I think I probably could have picked other movies. Looking at his career, there's definitely other movies we could have talked about, but it stood out to me. I think that this is a slice of history that definitely speaks to the person that Harry Belafonte was, and is, and it's something that a lot of viewers or listeners are probably didn't even know. For me, it's poignant because we haven't. I mean, I guess with the exception of 1968, and then Whoopi Goldberg said it in the documentary. 1968, we had that 1 week of black faces on late night, and then fast forward Arsenio Hall in terms of successful talk shows, and after that. I guess we really fast forward after that is Trevor Noah.
I mean, I was very impressed with the documentary and that it really told a story of how socially conscious Johnny Carson was.
Yes.
And people don't realize what people are doing behind the scenes. You see a celebrity, you see a politician or a movie star, whatever, someone of import, someone you see on TV. And some people aren't doing anything. They're just obsessed with being famous.
Yep.
And some people use their fame to change things that are broken in our society. And I had no idea that this week in history existed and that Johnny Carson actually, it's not like he was forced to do it or it was, expedient for his career to do it. It was something he did because he felt a certain sense of responsibility as a citizen of America to really give a platform to those who are being marginalized to be represented.
Yeah, and the title of the show was perfect because you think of a sit-in, it's a group of people that pause regular scheduling to stop to demonstrate their feelings. That's what a sit-in is, right?
Well, I got to say, I didn't like the film.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Of course you wasn't going to like it.
I didn't like the film, and I didn't like Carmen Jones either.
Okay.
I didn't like to sit in because I thought it was a little. I thought that the director and the producers sort of spoke down to the audience. So it opens up with all of these very contemporary people, like Tamron Hall and
Whoopi Goldberg.
Not Whoopi Goldberg, because Whoopi Goldberg is probably around that time. Questlove. Why do these people have to explain how important?
I can't front. They seem so out of place in that documentary.
That documentary is not going to age well because there's no reason for people of now to explain how important things were back then. It's not as if they were professors. It's not as if they were.
Who would you have substituted?
That's a good question.
Tamron Hall, Questlove with? Because
why couldn't they get people from that era?
I could have didn't. First of all, he's 94 years old. These people are dead.
No.
We have a satellite feed here from heaven.
Let's be happy he's here.
No.
You got Miss Cleo doing a seance to bring.
Well, no.
Call me out. Martin, is that you, Martin?
No.
No, go ahead, Warren. Who would you pick for that?
No, I mean the point I'm trying to make is like they don't all have to be his age. There were people that he worked with that were younger that at that particular time.
Sure.
It could have been some audience members. They could have gone to people who could have spoken more in depth about that time, as opposed to looking back
But Tamara Hall has a personal relationship with Belafonte. She mentioned that in her
and his daughter.
And his daughter was there.
It
Questlove,
took- it-
although
it's-
I think Questlove is there, is to
the
kind of
NBC
like
the NBC
here's-
joint.
right,
here's-
NBC.
Here's the bigger point.
Right.
You know, this show is sort of partially, our show, is born partially out of a thing that we did together called, we still continue to do as a family, called a double bill, where we look at films and we talk about them. And the thing that, in us sort of, making recommendations of films and we watch films together, is that a film represents a person's vision, and it should be seen as an entity unto itself, right? So you as a person, I see myself, I'm a person, right? And why should someone who is younger than me introduce me? Like, why did those people have to come in and say, this is important?
Let me tell you why it doesn't matter. Because it was such a profound moment that nobody talked about. For me, I didn't even care about who was talking about it. I just cared about to see that footage. I'm like, oh my God, you had this person and that person. It was just like, holy crap, this footage is crazy. Yeah. Even if they just played the footage without any commentary,
okay, all right. So
it would have been dope.
So 20 years from now, when someone's watching that film, will it have the same impact? And I'm comparing, like, say, The Sit-In is a documentary, right?
Yeah.
And we spoke about Raoul Peck and Raoul Peck documentary on James Baldwin. And I know they're not the same film. But Baldwin is able to stand on the merit of his own work through his own words. And I'm not saying that the director for this one, what's her name? Yoruba Rich, I think her name is. Like, I'm not saying that she has to use the style that Peck used to present Baldwin, but that week should be able to stand on its own without commentary from the most contemporary celebrities.
Right.
That's the way I see it.
No, I hear you, and I can see where you're coming from, but
And it's spoon feeding the audience, because at the end they said the same thing at the end, which is like, well, let's wrap it up by saying like Harry Belafonte was back then, and let's tie it to today, which is fine.
Yeah.
But why say it at the beginning and then say it at the end again? It's almost as if like I need to hammer it home.
Yeah.
When it didn't need to be like it for me, it took away from. I felt like it was very cynical.
Okay. I mean I definitely
words that I was far from my thought process. The word cynical, I didn't think of that at all. Here's the thing, I do think what you're saying has merit. Yeah. There are valid points that I'm now in retrospect recognizing. Okay,
if I'm from
those things are there.
If I'm from Germany, I'm watching this.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to see that there's footage of Harry Belafonte. I know who Harry
So
Belafonte
that's
is.
what I was.
Why does Tamron Hall? I live in Germany. Why does Tamron Hall have to
Poor
introduce
Tamron
me?
Hall.
Why does Questlove have to introduce it to me?
I was so taken aback by.
I get Questlove though.
Yeah, because he's in the Tonight Show, in the current Tonight Show.
That makes sense.
Right.
He's part of the current Tonight Show.
Tamron not so much.
Right. But I was so overwhelmed and taken aback by the fact I didn't know about this moment of history that I was just consuming it and enjoying it for what it was, which was historical education, right? And it's shocking that even Belafonte doesn't talk about it.
Mark, did you have anything? I don't. Mark Rosie's in the house, everybody.
Yes, I am. I'm listening, and I just, from what I'm hearing, I agree. I just feel like maybe this documentary is kind of like a teaser to get people who are now learning about him or learning more about him to be motivated to go further, because who knows? Like Reginald said jokingly, the man is respectively 94 years old. Who are we going to have on it? But if they were on it, how strong of the message would it be for the listeners? Because I see it as them making a documentary to, like a contemporary documentary as to what he's been doing in a taste of formatting for a younger audience to maybe be interested in learning more
But
about him.
here's the thing that got to me, and it's probably because it was paired together with Carmen Jones. The thing about it that got to me is, here's another instance where some high-level celebrities have to explain why what a black man did was important. That's the way I saw it. And again, maybe I'm seeing it from maybe the cynicism is all in me and not in the documentary itself.
I can see why you would say that.
Harry Belafonte's his activism speaks for itself.
Right.
Why do these people who are a couple generations younger than him have to go, he's important, You know
what they have to, though, unfortunately. And this is no shade to anybody that's listening.
Let's say I am 20 years old and I don't know who Harry Belafonte is.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Do I need Tamron Hall to show it to me when there's footage of him and you can speak about it in the context of that moment?
You're gonna make me say it.
Do it.
People need to be spoon-fed, Warren. Some people.
No.
Not our wonderful listeners,
Right.
but
No.
you guys can agree. Come on, Warren.
Yeah.
No.
Come on, Warren.
But
Great.
Not
thing is-
everybody. Listen, I think it was important. Just think about this, right? More. We've talked about this. Let's keep it funky, right? This was important.
Let's get into it.
This was important. This was important to us because I saw that and immediately it triggered something inside of me because I care about that stuff.
Right.
There's many people that would see that and would not care about it, which is beyond me. But
You're not pointing at
no,
Mark.
I'm just
Mark, are you?
I'm just
Okay.
expressively
It's a hand gesture.
mannerism.
It's a hand gesture.
There are people that are more moved by certain shows that are not as intellectual or sophisticated or whatever. Some people don't watch documentaries. Some people,
Right.
some people don't
But
listen
that's what I'm trying to say. The documentary was packaged in a way that says, "Listen, I'm going to make sure you get it. I'm going to pound it in your head that
Right.
you get it."
So I get the execution part. I understand that, but real talk, Warren. I speak for myself. That's like the Knicks is finished watching it, playing the game, right? I'm gonna, after we are done here and everybody goes home, I'm gonna go sit on my bed and watch the Knicks highlights, right? I'm a fan of the Knicks. I don't even need to hear the commentary. I can watch the highlights without a voice and still be excited about it. So that's what, at least
But
for me.
that's not an equivalent thing because the game is one thing and commentary is another thing. We're talking
Commentary
about a
enhances,
film.
yeah.
We're talking about a film that's been packaged
Yeah.
together under the vision of one director, right? So that's what I'm
I
saying.
think the Tamron Hall thing. I think he's just bothered by Tamron Hall.
No, I'm not bothered by Tamron Hall. I'm just saying that it's cynical.
To move our conversation and not listeners of the show, you'll hear this reoccurring theme. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because I think that it's important that we have to talk about certain things that the past has been telling us that's still happening today, right? So
You're sorry, but not sorry.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Johnny Carson, average person, mid-country.
You're quoting something from the film.
I am.
Yeah.
But I knew this before. I'm a comedy fan, so I knew about Johnny Carson before this. I know a lot about Johnny Carson.
Right. We all do.
Johnny Carson was presented as the boy next door, the very common average American guy who made it big, right? I mean, as he should. He was a very funny guy, whatever. It's still showing another narrative of, I hate to use this term, but we're gonna say it again, that exceptionalism that black folks needed to have at that time and probably still need to have.
But the film shows that it didn't matter if they were exceptional. Harry Belafonte one particular time had his own show, and they were like, yeah, it's all nice, but you're mixing it up with black and white, so you got to make a decision.
Yeah, and it wasn't trying to have that.
So it didn't matter how exceptional he was. It didn't matter how many records he sold.
But I think it mattered in Johnny Carson choosing him to do that week.
Yeah, that platform is that
Yeah,
is a whole
I think
different.
his resume is why he chose him to do that show. And plus, he knew that given that platform, he would be able to effectively communicate to the American people
The civil rights
movement.
Agreed.
I think that was his
Agreed.
contribution to the civil rights movement, Johnny Carson.
Yeah, and it wasn't like just based on what the show was saying. It wasn't like when he had Martin up there or RFK. It wasn't like they were just talking about politics. Like they said, that's the first time you ever seen Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Like cracking jokes. That was
Which was really good jokes. He had like smart jokes.
Yeah, so
Right.
I thought it was interesting, Warren. Anybody else want to add before we move on to our next work?
I was just reading the articles in that documentary, and I found it really interesting. One of the lines in the articles was saying that they were expecting Harry to just start the show with a song rather than a monologue, which was like a lot of things that they were mentioning about the pros and cons of this exceptional I wouldn't say performance, but just hosting of this show, which is on a really big mainstream moment for the world, where they mentioned this is the time where everybody got to see all these artists like uncensored, like not being the mainstream people that they are, and to have Harry come on and do more than what people are expecting to do, because let's just face it, he's really successful as an artist and many other things, and for him to come on, and I was a little bothered by that, for them to be thinking that he's just gonna come on and just do a song. Are you freaking kidding me? This is Harry, right? So
I mean, but he was a very popular.
But that's not.
I think that was his choice. I think he wanted to do a song, right? As his
Right. He
intro.
wasn't going to come on and
Because
do
he's-
a monologue.
He wasn't gonna do jokes. Like, he had
said it,
trepidation
yeah.
to do the show because he knew what the show was about. And then Carson told him, "Yeah, be you,"
Right.
and he gave him creative agency to structure the show, similar to what he's done in the past with his variety show that was ultimately canceled or whatever. He had a show that was canceled because of what you mentioned about the mixing he had in the show with black and white performers. But I think that was his wheelhouse, to sing, to do the intro as as a song or whatever, versus Carson doing a monologue and doing jokes or whatever at the beginning of it.
Let me ask this question then, because we are of a certain age, and we are thinking we're praising Johnny Carson for giving him this forum. If I'm 20 years old, I'm thinking, why do we need to thank this white man for doing this? Because Harry Belafonte deserved it.
It was 1968. And
So what? Like, why didn't Harry Belafonte do that to a similar thing on his show?
in terms of what that, because of the platform. The Tonight Show was that was the biggest platform.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was watching that show in their
so
bedrooms, their living
Yeah.
rooms.
So that 20-year-old has to look at a platform where there's only 3 major networks. It's not like there's 500 channels out there, right? There's no cable, right?
Right.
It's 1968. It's you're in the heart of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King's about to get assassinated. You know, all kinds of crazy things were happening. All kinds of new legislation and all things were happening. And late night was a very, and to this day, I mean, real talk, guys, late night's white. It's white. So a 20-year-old with intent and with a level of consciousness is gonna do the homework and look at you have to look at, like, just like what Belafonte talks about. You have to look at the context of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. But in addition to what you're saying, I do believe that it's a really prime time that everyone's going to be watching. He did have shows prior to it. Some of it went really well, and some of them did not. But the thing is that to be on that show, not only as a black man, but to be on at a window at a time that everyone is watching, I think that was an opportunity to send a message to
And
everyone.
the ratings were good.
They were good.
It wasn't like it flopped. So he did something. Anyway,
He did say something that was, I think, very powerful. He said that the artist reveals society to itself. right? So it's almost like a call to action. Like, what do you do with that social capital? What do you do with that? Do you glory in it for yourself, or do you use that to, as he says, reveal society to itself? I think he used that week to bring out his friends, because all these people he knew personally.
Yeah, he was cool with. Yeah.
Yeah, but we also have to remember, Harry Belafonte has a white fan base. He had a white fan base prior to.
This is true.
So that also worked for him as well.
That's true. That's a good point.
Right, yeah. That what I'm saying is not mutually exclusive to what you're saying. I'm just saying that, first of all, what I said was race neutral.
Right.
But since we are talking about civil rights,
Yeah.
to your point, I think he leveraged his celebrity and the celebrity of his friends to take the civil rights movement to another level in terms of like the awareness factor. Same way we watched Selma, and it revealed something I didn't know until then, that Martin Luther King was the brainchild behind using the media to showcase the brutality so that people, white people, could see what's really happening. I don't think, the average white person who, church going, good citizen, probably doesn't really have a negative view on black people, right? I'm sure a lot of people did, but I'm sure there were a lot of people who were watching how things were being handled. They didn't like it.
Right.
And those people were the ones that I think those images pulled at their heartstring to say, wow, this is really bad. Like, we should do something about this. So when you use the power of the media to show the brutality, and then Harry Belafonte using the power of his celebrity and his celebrity and his friends, whatever, to showcase how intelligent, successful, also influential black people are, it kind of sells the idea that, black people are not only human, but they're excellent in what they do, and they have a voice. They're not just how they're being portrayed in, what's that propaganda movie that came out in the early 20th century, Birth of a Nation. I think that image of black people is stuck in a lot of other people's heads, that we're lazy, we're this, we're that. And that's what I think gave Jim Crow power.
Yeah. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, DoubleBillMovies.com, a book club for movies. Watch 2 movies and join us to talk about it. A forum for avid and casual movie watchers to discuss how this medium shapes the way we see the world around us. Go to DoubleBillMovies.com for more details. Now, back to the show.
Moving on to the next thing Warren hates.
So the next, I actually love this because listeners, if you at this point, if you guys don't know Warren by trade is an architect. Warren, in my opinion, is someone who is very rigid with his way of thinking, which gets him to be someone who can be an architect. Because it's not a very.
I am not rigid in my way of thinking.
So he says.
No, I'm not.
No,
but
okay.
Warren is thoughtful.
Maybe rigid wasn't the right word.
No, he is rigid.
It is absolutely not the right word.
No.
Go ahead, Reg.
Because rigid implies that I can't have a conversation with anyone and change my opinions based on that conversation. That's not the case.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, the side of the brain that Warren uses allows him to be successful in the world of architecture.
But architecture is about art and science. So it's both sides of the brains, both sides of the brain.
But we're dominant on one end, though. Nobody uses dominant both sides.
But an architect needs both.
Yeah, but you're still dominant on one, though.
Okay. All right.
You're not gonna win this fight, buddy. Anyway, so my whole point is that I believe that Warren. I think even before you even watched, you were probably like, Sinan, Carmen Jones. We could have used. We could have probably picked two of them.
No, I started watching the sit-in
Beforehand. Yeah, I remember
beforehand.
that. We talked about that. Yeah,
and I turned it off because
Yeah.
I'm like, why do these people have to tell me who Harry Belafonte is?
because you already know who he is.
It has nothing to do with that.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
I mean, I've seen documentaries on, for instance, we watch a documentary on Maratha from New Zealand, who
Yeah.
was, her son came on and said, "This is my mom." Celebrities didn't have to come on and speak about her and her importance. You saw it in her work.
All right, fair enough. All right, moving on, guys. and and I don't want to discredit what we're saying. I understand what he's saying. I'm just giving him a hard time. Moving on, guys. We're gonna talk about Carmen Jones.
Nice.
Which I hated completely.
So
I'm surprised.
Let me, if you guys will allow.
You guys can speak first about it.
There were some moments in the movie, especially in the very beginning, where the very beginning scene when all the workers were going
To that division.
to the entrance of the military
Yeah,
base.
they did the division.
Right? And like a bunch of those black folks were like singing. It was just a little weird.
The little kids.
Do you guys remember that first?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it might as well been singing "Oh, hey, oh," like that, a kind of minstrel.
It was weird, but Warren, I think what's important to know about Carmen Jones is the context. What year was Carmen Jones, guys? 1954.
So
It's not so, bro. Come on, I'm leaving. I'm done. 1954, man. That is.
as a matter of fact, as I was watching it, I was like, "What is wrong with Tony? Like, what is wrong with him?"
Yes, bring it on. All right, so let's talk about it. Reginald, before we start, can we just talk about what if for our listeners out there?
Let's do some damage control.
For our listeners out there, just kind of give us a brief synopsis of the movie.
Oh boy, it's a musical based off of an opera named Carmen,
BZ.
right? Starring Harry Belafonte and the beautiful Dorothy Dandridge.
Beautiful.
Big up to Dorothy
My
Dandridge.
goodness.
Big ups.
Big
Up to Cleveland.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, the movie was eye candy for me, man. Like
Gorgeous.
watching Dorothy Dandridge. If there was any technical issues with the movie,
There was.
If there were issues, it was lost on me because I was just fixated on how fine that woman was. And you know what? Like, I didn't mind the movie. I liked the music.
The music was great.
But sadly, I realized that the music was dubbed.
For because
because
and Belafonte, yeah.
Because the director and the producers.
Strike number one.
Right. Okay. So he's on that camp which I understand why. You know, these people are singers in their own right. Belafonte is an accomplished singer. Dorothy Dandridge could sing. But they wanted to maintain the operatic integrity of the original work.
The woman that did the voiceover for Dorothy was actually a white woman, but she was revered as someone who can just mimic people's voices, just like to a tone. So that's why she did that. And actually, the person who dubbed Belafonte's voice, he was actually from the original stage play of Carmen Jones in 1943. But go ahead, Reg.
But so yeah, the movie's about a woman who, Carmen Jones, who is a free spirit, who sees someone that she likes and tries to acquire this person, mainly because he is ignoring her, and by hook or crook, she finds a way to get him to renounce his lady, and then that starts the downward spiral of that relationship.
Yo,
what you think about the movie, Mark?
Yo, I'm just saying. Well, I'm just saying, based on what Reginald just shared right now, when we got to the end, I was like, why did you do that to this guy, man? This guy just like dropped everything for this lady. So when you talk about how she got him, I'm like, yeah, she got him, but she kind of did him dirty, in my opinion. I don't know if you may disagree. I don't know if you guys.
I agree, but shame on. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn.
I'm going to agree with what you're saying.
Shame on Joe for not recognizing the type of woman that she was. Because look, she kind of went against her nature to try to be committed to the idea of being with Joe, but then and through circumstances, really became the downfall of that relationship because, she doesn't like to be confined. And then he was in a confined situation, which prompted her to go back to her natural way of being. And then the movie takes...
That's exactly what happened.
It doesn't even take a left turn. It takes the turn that you know is going to take. Like, you're expecting this to happen because the character, Joe, becomes increasingly possessive. This is coming from someone who was nonchalant about the relationship, which was the point of attraction for her, but then he became intoxicated by her.
Who wouldn't?
And I would be tight that I actually got in trouble for trying to do the right thing and bring her to jail and then being punished for it and still feeling feelings for her. I would be like, yo, I'm done. But
So, okay. So this film has nothing to do with Harry Belafonte. I understand the film is about representation, and it's about representation in 1954. But this film, they could have brought in a Chinese man, a Chinese cast to do this movie, and it would still be exactly the same.
I disagree.
I don't think so either. I mean, don't you think the fact that it's like a black musical that it makes a difference?
If you read the director's notion of the film, he went to see Carmen Jones on Broadway, and he was like, "What is these people doing? Like these kinds of soulful versions of opera?
Go ahead.
Why not put it on the film? Make a film out of it, and then get some European type voices to do the songs." So let's make these black people into puppets for European culture.
okay, how successful would that movie have been if he kept the same
stage play.
Right, the same aesthetic, the same what's the word I'm looking for? The same format.
Same operatic.
No, not the operatic. The twist to the opera that the stage play,
right,
or the musical that he saw on Broadway. If he adopted that and put that on screen, I don't know if
it would have aged better because it would have been an expression of
right. But the society that they were living in might not have greenlit that type of of jazz. That's the problem.
That is not the case because Sidney Poitier was doing films back then. He did films, right?
Yeah, but he wasn't.
Was it?
You know, I'm gonna.
And also, wait a minute, because you guys are going to sort of team up here. But
no, Warren. I was not. I was actually gonna agree with you.
Hold on.
That's 1954, though. You saw Sidney Poitier doing film, but
so this director, Otto Preminger, in a lot of ways, he was a trailblazer in the fact that he was one of the first independent filmmakers.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but when he did Porgy and Bess in 1959, he asked Harry Belafonte to come back, and Harry Belafonte said, "Well, I don't want my voice dubbed in." And he goes, "It's going to happen." And Harry Belafonte said, "Go fuck yourself." And they brought in Sidney Poitier, and he dubbed him too. So the director had no real respect for African culture.
Wow, really?
And
I
he
see what
never
you're saying.
he never did. For him, it was like, I think he saw them as like, look, these are exotic people. Let's present these exotic people in a different format.
Okay, I agree with that. But I'm just saying, I'm not
This film
sure.
has nothing to do with Harry Belafonte.
But do you honestly think that in 1954 that movie would have worked or would have been successful if they made it less operatic and more reflective of black culture and black ways of singing?
Yeah,
I think so.
If it's a matter of tweaking it in a way.
The execution of it.
The execution of it.
Okay.
They could have tweaked it. Like, someone would have said, well, what's going on? Like, if they'd introduced, if there was a Frank Sinatra in it, if there was someone else, if they'd mixed it up, there's a way to present it that would have been palatable for the general audience.
Okay, so
Okay,
hold on.
okay.
So Warren has a strong point.
Yeah.
For someone who's a Martin Scorsese fan, we're gonna get there. But anyway,
Listen, you said Bringing Out the Dead was a terrible movie. This film is a terrible movie because it's neither a good reflection of the original Carmen opera, and it's not even a good reflection of the people who are starring in it, who are the black people.
see, so this conversation, right? So
Okay.
this
is the film that you represent. You wanted it.
Oh, absolutely, and I have no regrets in doing that because the movie is a historical movie, and it's
But that's all it is. I mean, like, for instance,
Right.
I used to watch, when I was a kid, I used to watch Humphrey Bogart films. And then watching them again and seeing how racist and, chauvinist that they are,
Right.
it's not films that I can embrace anymore. They didn't age well.
So,
They're no longer relevant.
We had this conversation a year ago. I think that was you. I was telling how Good Times. I can't watch Good Times. It's a tough watch for me because it's not great.
No.
What do you remember what you told me about that though?
What did I say?
You said, but you have to think of the time it was done. That's all they had at the time. You said that.
Well,
You said that, bro.
No.
And that was the 70s. Now we're talking about 1954
But
in
even- all right.
in the zenith of Jim
Okay,
Crow.
so
Tony
let's-
got
They did
receipts.
an all black.
Let's
Tony got receipts.
let's just focus on that. Let's just focus on that. Okay.
Dynamite, son.
Okay. All right. Let's just focus on that. Let's
Okay.
focus on just what you're saying,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I believe is bullshit. But let's focus on what you're saying here. The even within that context, the director is still exploiting these people and not letting them truly express themselves for the unique talents that they are. He could have brought in another cast and they would have had the same performances, the same stilted performances.
I don't agree.
Because even the cinematography of it, there's not even much cinematography. Like, it's not even a great musical.
What if
because
those talents didn't agree to do it?
because it, like I think I was telling Reginald, in a musical you have music to tell the story, and you have while you're singing, you're also doing choreography. There wasn't even any choreography in the thing. It was very stilted, very, artificial. There was
Choreography I liked? There was the choreography when Belafonte was helping her zip up her dress. That was beautiful.
So,
And she had a zebra print.
let's talk about Dorothy Dandridge real quick. Just in my research, I found out that she was not the first person that
He was going to choose Eartha Kitt. And Eartha Kitt said no, because
wait.
I'm not getting to
Yes, she wants to sing. She wants to sing.
Yeah,
She wants to
like,
sing.
so this was a great vehicle for Harry Belafonte to become famous, but it's not a great vehicle for the arts and culture of Caribbean people. This is not a great representation of Caribbean people.
Well, if that movie was, to your point, a platform or a springboard for him to become famous, I disagree with you. I think that because it is a springboard,
This is
because
what made him famous.
Yeah, because it made him famous, we have to take the good, the bad, and the ugly, and recognize that first of all, the fact that he was chosen to do the movie shows that he was on his way up, right? And they wanted someone to represent black people, or whatever the objective was for Out of Preminger, to put a black cast together to
He thought it was exotic.
Right. Okay. So
In the same way that people go up to you, some white people might go up to black people and go, "Oh, your hair is just it's soft. I didn't realize how soft it was."
So you were offended by the movie. It's not like you were offended.
I was offended by the movie. I was taking notes. I was like, "This is ridiculous," and I just stopped taking notes because I'm like, "There's nothing. There's nothing in this thing."
No. So there were some moments. So like I said,
What moments?
There were some moments. So like when she was running from the law and she ended up in that, I don't know.
Her town, or
Yeah, she was in a town and she was at some club, and then she walked in the club and they did that number with the drummer. That was kind of weird. There were some moments where I was like, this is a bit weird. But like I tell you before, Warren, I guess my lens for watching this was the context of the time. Now you're right. You're bringing up some strong points. What about the actual performances? Not let's get away from the execution.
How can you give a good performance when the director he doesn't really care about you?
Mark?
I think the performances were predictable because they had there's no autonomy to their performance. There were such puppets in the puppet master's hand.
Oh.
How could they give a good performance? I mean, I think his other movie was A Place in the Sun, or I think that was that better represent who Harry Belafonte was and is.
No, I think Warren would have
Listen. I didn't have the privilege of meeting this man, right? So I can't say that he was a racist, right? I can't say that he didn't care for people off the set or didn't care for people in general. I'm just saying you can only judge a person by what they do.
So, do you think in 1954 when this movie got rolled out, do you think that your basic average white person who's watching this film was thinking that? I guess, and more importantly, what were the black folks thinking when they were watching?
The black folks who are thinking like, "Oh my God, there are black people on the screen that look like me."
Right. Isn't that a good thing?
Isn't that Harry Belafonte?
Because before people start recognizing the impact of, a white studio and a white director exploiting black people as exotic images or beings to further their agenda, or whatever it is.
Their career.
Their career, right? I think the immediate impact upon watching it as a black person is a good one. Because you don't have time to really rationalize all the other, the underpinnings of this type of exploitation.
I understand what you guys. I understand what you guys were saying as far as.
I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of the motive.
No, great point.
The motive the motive is there. I'm sure it's there.
Right.
But for the fact that it was indeed a springboard for Harry Belafonte, that's a good thing. For the fact that for the first time ever, you see an all-black cast, and the next time you see an all-black cast is all the way in 1988, Coming to America.
No, he did another one, 59, with Porgy and Bess, the Auto Primager with Dorothy Dandridge and Sidney Poitier.
Okay. So how many?
And there are a bunch of other all-black films. Eventually, in the 70s, Sidney
Poitier.
Right?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. That's true. Like the blaxploitation era.
And even before that, but yeah.
But still, 1954. Man.
Yeah, that's
big. But it doesn't.
You have here's the thing, Warren, and I think you're bringing up some strong points, and I'm gonna, if I ever watch the movie again, I'm definitely gonna see it differently. I definitely didn't like the overdub. I didn't like it.
But let me also say about Otto Preminger. I mean, I say these things about him, but I think that he did a groundbreaking film around about that time, probably in 59, probably 60, 59, or 58, called The Man with the Golden Arm, which is the first film that I've seen. It stars Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, it was a good movie. That was
the first film that I seen from that era, or the earliest film that I know of, where they actually went into someone, went into the story of someone who actually has an addiction.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he had a drug addiction.
yeah, but so Otto Preminger did that. So it's kind of, I have to acknowledge that.
No, I get it. It could have been executed differently. I'm just stuck that it was 50.
The thing that made me upset most about it is something Reginald said a long time
Reginald
ago.
got you upset?
Well, no, he gave me food for thought, which it's been part of my sort of rotating thought lexicon for a while, ever since he said it, which is like, people see black people as as us always overcoming something, and always that we're not seen in the true complexity of the human beings that we are. Mm-hmm. And I think in Carmen Jones, that's pretty obvious. And that was part of it also with the sit-in for me, which is basically, when I think about that, like, at the time of 1968, Harry Belafonte has an sort of irrefutable body of work.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And why should people have to introduce him? If you don't know Miles Davis, all right, I'm 14 years old, I don't know who Miles Davis is. Why do I need Olivia Rodrigo to introduce him to me?
I see it differently. Going back to the sit-in, I don't think they were introducing Harry Belafonte more than they were showcasing the fact that he hosted the Tonight Show, which is, like, as I mentioned before, something that I don't think anybody knew about.
And okay, so
all the other things that they talked about Belafonte were just incidentals.
Right. And I think we're all a fan of the podcast Radiolab, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Radiolab is currently doing a series on how
Bing Crosby?
Bing Crosby, how the Walkman and the tape, the recorded tape
Right.
machines changed our lives completely.
Yeah.
And the introduction of the importance of the tape recorder and Bing Crosby was done in less than 2 minutes. The introduction of Harry Belafonte went on for 15 minutes. Why?
Unnecessary.
So it comes back again to what Reginald is saying. It's like, why do we as
The
black
story
people have to
presented
be?
different.
Why do we have black people have to be explained all the time? That's the way. That's
Still
that's
happening
the,
today, though.
yeah. But that's the thing that both of those films have in.
People are stupid.
I don't think that's the right way to take a look at it.
I do
Because people went ahead and watched Inception. Inception is not a movie for dumb people.
No, it's not.
And it works perfectly. Even if you are someone who never studied science, you can watch it and understand layers of information that's going on in there.
Well, Inception is different because it's for entertainment. It's a mind-bending type of movie.
But there's a philosophy in it about levels and dreaming and about reality and not reality.
So we're talking about something that's a discipline, right? In terms of understanding science and physics and those type of things. And now we're talking about
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
No,
You're presenting it. You're presenting both of those as films, right?
Right. But to talk about Reginald and about always showing black people as overcomers is because still to this day, right? You still have people that consider us renters, second-class citizens.
So why lean into that?
I think as a
especially like, all right, I understand the
let me finish
context.
my thought. So I think as a presenter, this probably as an artist is probably just innate to them to base their execution based on what's happening. And unfortunately, today still you have to say, "Hey, we're regular folks. Hey, look at us. We're just like you guys. Hey, we do great things too." Still to this day, we gotta do that.
Why didn't they have to do it with the James Baldwin film, I'm Not Your Negro? His work stands on its own in the same way that Harry Belafonte's work stands on its own. The other documentary that was done on him, it's a similar thing. No one was like, all right, guys, listen, Let's sit down for 15 minutes and I'll tell you how important Harry Belafonte is.
We were not subservient. We weren't making jokes every 3 minutes, and we were not trying to I think, modify the pain that we were feeling as men in an America that was so unyielding. But when James Edwards and Sidney Poitier and myself stepped into the space that we found open to us, the question was, how do we change the traditional view of Hollywood in relationship to black life, black individuals, and especially as it had portrayed black men. Most of the times when you saw black men, you saw men in servitude, men as butlers, men as intellectually inferior or absent of culture and taste and thought. And when we took to the gate, we decided that we would move differently. In that process, we still were at the behest of the studios. Everything had to be done through their filter, through their perception, through the way they saw it. And it was either their way or no way.
Right. So to bring balance, because as much as Warren's delivery might have left a terrible taste in my mouth, I'm the type of person that takes the good parts and I just throw out the bad parts. So I do like the challenge, and I appreciate his point of view, because we shouldn't just look at things blindly. So I think Warren brings that lens. So Warren, you appreciate it, and you're not at the same time. How's that happen? I can't tell you. But to bring balance, because Harry Belafonte is such an important person to us, I wanted to bring light to another movie that we reviewed this week, which is An Island in the Sun, which was a 19...
Now, are you choosing this movie as a balance to...
The conversation.
And to expand the conversation.
To expand the conversation and to make sure that we're properly highlighting Harry Belafonte, because I felt since our conversation was so unique, and you'll hear this in the upcoming conversation, that I wanted to make sure that we properly digest the movie without it sounding like an episode of Maury Povich after the man found out that he wasn't the father. So anyway, the movie was Island in the Sun, which was a very interesting film, 1957. This movie actually was the follow-up to Dorothy Dandridge. So she, ironically to our conversation, this was her follow-up to Carmen Jones. She didn't do anything for 3 years, and this was the next movie that she did. So what do you guys think about the movie? Did you see it?
Well, it was a much better choice.
To you?
To me, it's a much better choice.
Why?
Because it was charged with the subject of colonialism and its effect on the colonists, the people who are being colonialized, and the colonists themselves who are imposing the colonization. And the kind of what it showed to me is that, I remember a few years ago I heard Bishop Tutu said that the reason that white South Africans were imposed apartheid and very harsh system is because they felt in some way deep down inside that they were connected to the Africans, and they wanted to erase that connection to make them distinct from the Africans. And I think that this movie sort of covers that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys haven't seen the movie already, I thoroughly encourage you to see this movie. It showcases Belafonte's passion for activism. Even in that movie, you can tell that what he was saying, it wasn't just a script. He did it in a way where, the setting was the Caribbean, but you can tell that this was also the context of me living in the States. When the woman was talking about, and I don't want to take too much away from if you guys didn't see it, but there's a point in the movie where
can I describe the IMDb sort of synopsis?
Sure. But let me say this real quick.
Sure.
What I appreciated, I want Reginald to chime in for a second too. What I did appreciate about Belafonte, when the woman was talking about him leaving the island, all these type of things, and he was like, I can never leave being black because black is where I live. So it doesn't matter.
My skin is my country.
The skin is my country. That's what he said. Thank you very, very. Yeah, but and when he says those little bits, and then there was a point where he had a debate with somebody in the government, and you can tell that this was not just a script that he was reading. This is what he felt. But go ahead, Warren.
So the IMDb synopsis is: a charismatic black leader threatens to unseat British rule on a tropical island of Santa Marta. And soon 4 scandalous love affairs intertwine to affect the political career of his wealthy rival.
Yeah. But Reg, you wanted to add anything?
So Harry Belafonte is not the star of the movie.
He's not.
No. James Mason.
James Mason, the very
Right. He's
revered.
always right. He's always well. He's not always, but in a lot of movies, he's usually the cuckold guy.
Cuckold guy, right?
Or is usually the guy who's has been dealt a wrong hand. Yeah.
I mean, you could see shades of that in this movie too. I mean, that's kind of what he kind of represented in this movie. But he's the main character. But Harry Belafonte, his presence really looms large in the movie, even though he's not a major. I mean,
right? He doesn't have as much screen time.
Not as much screen time, but his screen time was very, very powerful. Yeah. He's really the glue that holds the movie together.
Yep.
As far as
that's what everyone's reacting to.
Right, reacting to. Correct. That's kind of what I wanted to articulate. But this is, as you said, about the colonized and the colonists and the effects of colonization over centuries of exploitation and what that looks like what postmodern colonization looks like in a time where you have people who are supposedly free. They're not slaves anymore, but there's still some aspects of exploitation or slavery, and now you're looking at like merging people into society, like people that were once fully ostracized, right? They're not participating in anything economic or governmental or whatever it is, but now they could run for office and they're part of the society. And how does the colonists now deal with these people who are newly freed, and how do you deal with that aspect of blending in society? And one of the things that this movie exploits is, romance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's softened by the romance. It's because if they were to really, the thing that's good about it, and it's kind of clunky in a way, but it's a 1957 film. The thing it would be hard to go sort of to the front door on this particular subject is the fact that you're saying that they're sort of free, but they're not really free, right?
Right.
Because the way that British colonialism worked was that they never really admit that there's slavery. They never admit that there is inequality. It sort of is. The beginning character at the beginning, the governor, who's really anyone from British colony will know them as the Governor General, which is basically the titular head still tied to the Queen or the King, right? They're sort of in place of them. Mm-hmm. He's still the Governor General, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that Harry Belafonte is potentially running for office. Mm-hmm. So he is he's going to be running for office, and if he wins that seat, he's just going to be leader just in name only. I don't think he's going to have any real power. Yeah. So, and then there's the other aspect, the sort of the undertow, which is basically the fact that the colonialists are literally related to the people that they colonized.
Yes, which and how they responded once they found out. It was repulsive on how they responded once they knew they had some Negro blood in their lineage. It's crazy.
It was showing the absurdity of this
so
whole thing.
let me ask you guys this, because it was revealed to them by an American reporter. The American reporter is kind of like the eyes and ears of the audience,
Yes,
specifically the American audience.
Yes, it's
right?
very true.
Because
very true.
Americans are not going to understand that kind of world without someone sort of explaining.
Especially not in 1957.
Right. When the reporter reveals that the main white family, the wealthy rival, as in that synopsis, is mixed, and eventually the mother of that rival reveals to his sister, like, oh, no, that's not really true. Did you believe the mother?
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't. Anyway, guys, I chose this movie just to bring some balance. I would definitely, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Right now, currently, you can. At this time of the recording, it's on YouTube.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I want to shine a light on one thing that might have gotten lost in the excited exchange of our banter. At a certain point during the discussion, I made a declaration. I said quite confidently, I can't watch Humphrey Bogart movies anymore. This is not true. I don't know why I said it. In any case, I recently watched The Maltese Falcon again, probably for the first time since childhood, and loved it. This episode was moderated and produced by Tony Sherry, Reginald Valentine, Mark Barozzi, and Warren Wade Anderson. The clips of Harry Belafonte were taken from episode 158 of the Pure Nonfiction podcast. Go to purenonfiction.net to listen to the full episode. Next week, 2 films by Caribbean-British director Horace Ove. Thank you for listening to Antilles.